These hero sections were most likely created with AI and no code and were sold for thousands of dollars. In this video, I'm giving you a step-by-step blueprint on how you can create these yourself without any coding knowledge, just by utilizing AI and no code. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. Okay, so basically I want to make this video really quick and easy to follow along with. So first of all, we're going to go and look for a reference image. Then we're going to start prompting in Midjourney. And then we're going to put it together in Framer without writing a single line of code. And we're going to also make it responsive. So at the end, we have an actual responsive hero section that we can, amaze our friends with. So let's go into the first section and look for a reference image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Google and search for Studio Ghibli art style illustration. So let's see what we have. I'm going to go to images and I'm going to just try to look for something, that I like. So I don't really spend a long time with this. Maybe this is an image that I like. Just look for an image that you want to kind of copy the style of. So if you really like a specific art style, you can just grab a reference image, with that art style, and we're going to be able to use this in Midjourney so that the generated images will, have the same, style. So in this case, we can, just pick this one. And what we can do here is we can copy the image address. And so we're going to be able to use this in our prompt. So now we can immediately go into the second section and start prompting. I'm not really going to do this here live because that would be a little bit unpredictable. So I already prompted the image and I have the whole process that I can show you. So let's do that now. So as you can see, this was my first prompt in Midjourney. And this is not just a simple prompt. This follows a really specific framework that you can also start using in your prompts. So you can see the first part of the prompt is the subject. So in this case, we want to have like a small character. Then we want to have the action. In this case, this is the on adventure gazing out. Then we want to add the environment. So this is going to be the out over a landscape with a huge cyberpunk city with skyscrapers. And then we're going to end with the specific art style that we want to go with, or anything that, is related to the art style. So in this case, it is going to be Studio Ghibli art style. And here comes the magic, because we are not going to end the prompt here. We're going to add the sref here, as you can see, and the link of our reference image that we found on Google. So as you remember, here we have the reference image. We're just pasting that within here after sref, and then we end with AR 16 by 10 was the original that I written here, but it was changed to 8 by 5 because that's basically the same thing. But basically this is what defines the aspect ratio of the image. So as you can see, I got these images after sending this prompt, and you can see that these all look pretty cool. And what you do here is you just start, tweaking your prompt either, or, regenerating different versions. So in this case, what I was doing is that, okay, these look really cool, but I want to see what can we, do with this second image. So I pressed this V2, which basically does different versions of this second image. So let's see that. This was the versions of that second image. As you can see now, all of these versions are looking really similar to this one. And why I did that is because I wanted to have a character in the center, and that was the only image where we had the character in the center, and also like the clouds on the sides. I felt like it could really work great on the hero section. I just wanted to see if there is version of that could be a little bit better. And here what I like really much is the third one. So what I did is I upscaled the third one, which basically just upscales this. These are a little bit lower quality images. As you can see here, 4 images are on one image. So if we upscale one, then we have a higher quality image. And what I did here is I did a zoom out. So what I essentially wanted to do is have just more space around the image, and just make sure that this character is actually small because I wanted to have a small character. And in here, this is a little bit too big for us. So if you do a zoom out, you're gonna see that this is what I got. It just, started expanding the image and, filling up the area around the image with new content. And yeah, here I also just went with something that I preferred. I really liked this top right option. So what I did is I upscaled that. And then, yeah, I think this was the last thing. And no, actually not, because I also zoomed out on this one because I still felt like that this is a little bit too like big here, this character. So we could have some, as more of an expanding version of this image as well. So I just zoomed out and then I got this. And actually I then zoomed out again, but then that didn't really work. So I just, stayed with this version. And as you can see, what I really enjoyed and liked was the third one. And that's why I ended up upscaling the third one. So yeah, this was the, the last thing that I ended up using then on that hero section that we're gonna actually build together. You can see that here I tried zooming out again, but then that didn't really work out great. So yeah, I just stick to this one. So yeah, basically that's how you prompt with Midjourney. You just stick to the framework that I told you: subject plus action plus environment plus art style, and then go and add an sref, which is style reference. Just grab an image that you like the style of and paste it into your prompt. And then you can also specify the aspect ratio with AR at the end of the prompt. And basically that's it. You just go regenerate, do different versions of images that you like, upscale, zoom out, and then you hopefully end up with an image that you like and you can use it in a hero section. So now let's see how we can use this image and build a really cool hero section with it. Because you can see it here that I built this little like hero section with it, which is actually like a sign up for a wait list. And you can see that we have this amazing image on the right side, and then a form on the left, some text, and basically that's it. And also I can guarantee that if I were to post this on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever, this would go viral, because yeah, as I said, I saw many of these posts on Twitter lately, and I kind of feel like this is a new trend of like putting these crazy like AI images into hero section. And I'm gonna tell you that yeah, it looks pretty cool. So let's go into Framer and start building this. So what I'm gonna do here now is tell you that you can find the remix link in the description. So if you remix the project, you'll go to the pages on the left and click the starter, and you're gonna find all the assets that we're gonna be using for this hero section, the image that I generated, but you can also replace this with yours if you generated one. And then we have some profile images for the social proof. So I'm gonna go to tutorial, but you can stay on starter and just start building with me. So as you can see, we already have a little setup here inside of this project, so we don't have to deal with that. We have the desktop breakpoint on the left panel. You can see that within that we have a main container, and within that we have the hero section. So now all we have to do is just start drawing rectangles and assemble this simple section. So yeah, let's start doing that. First, I'm going to just grab this image and put it within the hero here. And then what I want to do is I want to make sure that it fills up the available width and height of this hero. But of course, we're going to have another section or another like container next to it that will house all the content that is within here on the left. So for that, we have to draw another frame, which is actually a little hard when we have like a full size image here, because if I draw a frame here, then I have the frame now within the image frame, which is not really what I wanted. So a quick workaround that I use for these cases is I drew the frame here outside of the breakpoint, and then I press Command and X. This basically cuts that frame and puts it on my clipboard. So now I can just select the hero section, where I want to place it within, and then just press Command V, and that's it. Now I can just reorder these with the arrow keys, and I want to have this on the left. And yeah, basically that's it. Both of them, so the image and the frame, will both be set to width fill, but I want to dedicate a little more space to this little illustration, as you can see here. So the way I do that is by setting this width to a little bit bigger number. Now it's 1 FR, but if I increase it to 1.5 or 1.7, as you can see, it will take up more space. And this is exactly what we want. But actually, I think 1.5 FR will be enough for us. And then here on the left, this frame can be renamed to maybe left column. And then I'm going to set the height of it to fill, so it fills up the available space. And the fill caliber can be removed because we're not really going to need that. Well, now we could place or start placing elements within this left column, but the problem with that would be that all of these elements that we place within would be absolutely positioned. As you can see, I can just move them around freely, but we want to use the relative positioning most of the time when we build websites with Framer, so that we can set width to fill to achieve a responsive structure. And if an element is absolutely positioned, we cannot set the width to fill. As you can see, it's grayed out. So how do we set this to relative? Because we cannot do that as well. So what you can do in this case is you can just turn the parent frame of these little elements. In this case, we have the frames here. Their parent is the left column, and we can turn that into a stack. It's really easy to do that. We can go to the right panel and just click this plus button next to the layout. Now you can see that all of these frames within have jumped to their relative position, and I don't even have to set them to relative because, again, they automatically jumped to relative position. And now I can also utilize, fill width, for example, so it will be nice and responsive, and yeah, stuff like that. So now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave one frame here, and I'm going to call this content. And this content frame will be width fill, so it fills up the available space. But I also want to make sure that it will not grow bigger than a certain size. So I want to have a max width on that. Because as you can see here, these elements within the left column doesn't grow bigger than a certain size to keep it, contained. In my opinion, it looks a little bit better like that. If you want to make it, fill the width, you can also do that. It's like a design choice that I make here. But yeah, I'm going to add max width here on the right panel after selecting the content frame that we just created, and add max width, which is going to be 400 pixels right now. And basically that's it. We can also remove the fill color, but let me just first show you how it looks. So as you can see, if I start increasing the size of the viewport here in the preview, which I can, by the way, access with this play button in the top right or with Command and P. If I start increasing the size here, you can see that it will just not grow bigger than a certain size, which is 400 pixels in width. Great. Now the content will also be a stack. So I'm going to press this little plus button next to the layout, and then I'm going to remove the fill color because, it's not really going to have a fill color. As you can see here, it's as well just a transparent container. And we can start assembling the left column, which will have various elements. It is going to have a little logo, a couple of text layers of form, a social proof section, and then a little copyright text here on the bottom. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 3 groups. So one will be the logo, another group will be this bunch of content here in the center, and then the last group will be the copyright information on the bottom. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to set this content to fill height. And what I can also do is I can make sure that this content frame is filling up the available height, but still leaves a little bit more space on the top and on the bottom. We can achieve that by selecting the left column and adding some padding around. So let me just add the fill color to this content frame so you will see the effect of this change. So again, left column on the right, if we start increasing the padding, you can see how it starts changing. So I'm going to have 48 pixels of padding. So as you can see, it's being added on all sides here, on the left, on the top, and sorry, this was actually the right, and then the top, left, and bottom. And yeah, now we'll have just a little more breathing room around the edges. Perfect. Now I'll just remove the fill color and start adding some content within. I also might want to just have a little more space for this image here. So I can also just set the left column to a little bit lower of an FR number, maybe 0.8 FR. And now you're gonna see that, you know, the image is now taking a little more space here. So I can just start putting the content within the content frame here. So we'll start with the logo that you can also find here on the left. I'm gonna drop it in. And, you know, of course, you can replace this with your logo. You can just go to Figma or whatever, place in an SVG or an image. Now this is centered, which is not really great. So what I have to do here is I have to set the content to left alignment on the right panel. So when we have a stack inside a framer, the relatively positioned elements within will be positioned according to the layout settings of their parent. So for example, now logo is a relative element, its parent is the content. If on that content frame I'm changing the layout properties, the element within, which is relative, is being repositioned. So I can set the alignment to the left, and basically that's it. We're gonna also change the distribute, but you're gonna see that a little bit later when I add, for example, a text layer. So let's do that. I'm gonna just press T on my keyboard, click here, and I'm gonna type in discover a new way of learning framer. Actually, that's not that accurate because it was so discover the new way of learning framer. And now what I want to do is I want to also duplicate this and have the copyright text already, just so I can show you the distribute setting that we're going to use here. So I'm going to say copyright. I can maybe just, yeah, I can just paste in from here, and then also this. Okay, perfect. Okay, so these two will be actually wrapped in a common group or frame. So I'm going to select both of them. First of all, let's set them to 12 size, and the color will be a little bit darker. And so now I can just right click and add stack, but I can also use Option Command and Enter if I want to be a little bit quicker. So now these are wrapped in a stack. I can set that stack again here to left alignment. I can set the stack layers within to fill width, and I can also set the gap here to 0. So now we have the three items within the content frame that we wanted to have. We have the copyright info here on the bottom. In the center we have a title, but we're gonna have some more stuff here a little bit later. And then we also have a third element, which is on top, a little logo. And now we have to change the distribute here to different settings. So the distribute is like this. The logo is on the top, the title is in the center, and then the copyright is on the bottom. The way I do that is by setting the distribute to space between. As you can see now, the logo jumped to the top, this stayed in the center, and then the copyright jumped to the bottom as well. Pretty cool. Maybe here we want to have a little bit more space between these lines, so I can select the text here and just increase the line height a little bit. So maybe we're gonna have like 0.6 or 0.5 or something like that. And this looks already much better. Now we can start focusing on the center content that we're gonna have here. So of course this heading will be a little bit larger, so I'm gonna set it to 36. I'm going to also set the width to fill, so when it doesn't have enough space, it breaks into new lines. We can also change the font, so I'm going to go to this new category, which is called open source, because there's a bunch of new cool fonts, here. So I'm going to use this I don't know, guys, how to pronounce this, sorry. But yeah, I'm going to use this font. And then on the right, I can just set the weight to variable, and then 630 maybe. And I can also change the color to white. And for these larger texts, I like decreasing the letter spacing just slightly. I think 0.02 will be enough. So now to get this text below, we can just duplicate this text here because we already have it. So Command and D, and then just paste in the new text, which I'm going to do here. And then of course this is going to be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to set 14 for the size, 0 for the letter spacing, and then a little bit larger line height. And then the font will be just simply Enter with regular font weight. And yeah, basically that's it. I think maybe we can also set the color to 11, so it's a little bit darker. And then what I don't really like is that it's taking up the available space here and breaking into new lines. In a weird way, we have this testing here. It's not really cool having just a single word in a line. So I'm gonna set a max width on this, which is a little bit smaller. So yeah, maybe something like this. 340 should be good. Now, what you notice is that these are a little bit, far away from each other. So what we can do is we can group them together. So I'm going to select the title and this subtitle and just press Option Command Enter, which is again add stack if you just right click. And then I can set the alignment to the left. I can make sure that still both of them are set to fill width. And then I can increase the gap between them here on the right panel after selecting the stack that we created. So it's going to be 16 and it will be renamed on the left panel to text. So I know that this frame here called text is wrapping these two text layers. Now let's see what else do we need to add here. First of all, we have a form and then we have some social proof. So let's do the form. It's going to be really simple. First, we have to go to the insert panel on the top left and search for form. Now we have this form builder here that we can just drag and drop onto the canvas. I'm going to place it within the content frame. I'm going to set the width to fill and remove the padding. And then essentially what we need is just an email field and a submit button. So I'm going to remove everything else. Also this little email text here. And then I can set this form to direction horizontal, so the input field and the button is right next to each other. And then I can, tweak the styling of these elements by, selecting them and going to the right panel. I'll set the color here to white. I'm going to set the placeholder color to 11, but maybe I'm going to drop its opacity a little bit to maybe 70. And then what else? Maybe the fill color can be, I don't know what I used here. Let me see. We can also change the fill color to 4, so it's a little bit darker. And I'm going to also change the border here to 6. And then the focus will be our accent color, which is basically when we select the input field. That's the focus state. Great. Now we can go and select this button, double click into that, and then start tweaking this as well. What I want to do here is I want to make sure that the height is fixed, but the width is fit content. And then I'll just add a little space on the left and on the right by adding padding here. And I'll also change the text here, so join waitlist. Then we can make it white by changing the fill color to white. The text should be black within so we can see it. Then here on these hover states, we can just reset these changes, color changes on the right by clicking that and clicking reset override. And then we can add our own like the hover state on the right, filters, brightness, set it to 60%, and on the pressed state we can set that number to an even lower value. So brightness might be 50 here. So when I hover over it, we get the hover state, and if I click, it also gets even darker. Perfect. Now on the loading, we have to make the background color a little bit darker. So drop the opacity to, let's say 20 or 15. And let's see if there's anything that we have to tweak. Yes, here the success state should be black and the error state is looking great. So yeah, basically that's it. However, what you notice is that here the button is smaller. The reason why it's larger here, because the width is still set to fill. So we have to set it to fit content so it gets the value from the component itself. And basically that's it. We have created a form that I can fill out and join the waitlist. Now we want to actually make sure that it is being sent to somewhere. So if we select the form on the right panel, we can set up the send to. We can either set up our email so we get notified after each submission, or we can also add a Google Sheets. So every submission will be pasted or put into a Google Sheet automatically, and you can export your contacts from there going to do whatever you want to do with them. Or you can also set up webhooks, which is a little bit more complex. I have a video about that. It will be linked in the description, so watch that if you want to learn about that. And what I want to do here is I actually want to decrease the gap between these two, so it'll be a little bit smaller space here, maybe, I don't know, like 16. That's a little bit too much. 12 is looking great. Cool. So again, now our task is grouping these two together. So the form and the text stack is going to be wrapped again with Option, Command and Enter. Now they are, you can see in the same group in the center, and I can just increase or decrease the spacing to make it something that looks great. So I'm gonna increase it to maybe 30 or 28. And then the last element that we need is the little social proof section. So let's do that as well. We have all of these images, so we have to somehow set them up in a way that they're overlapping each other. So to do that, I'm gonna use a really clever structure. So first of all, I'm gonna select all of the images, round the corners on the right. So I'm gonna set 50%, so they're gonna be all rounded. And then I'm gonna make them a little bit smaller. They can actually be 32 by 32. And then I can drop them within our website. And then I can wrap them in a container in a group with Option, Command and Enter, and then set the direction to horizontal. So now they are right next to each other. I can also rename this tag that I just created to images. And also we have created another tag which wraps the text and form to text plus form. Now, looking at the images, we can change the gap between them, and you might expect them to overlap if we decrease the gap to a lower value than 0, but we cannot go into the negative values here. So how do we actually make them overlap each other? Well, we have to do something really clever here. We have to select the first image and then right click and add a frame. Then I'm going to set and rename the frame to wrap. And within the image will be not pinned to any sides. I'm going to just double click here in the center so we have this blue dot in the center, and then I can change the wrap frame's width to a lower value. Now you can see that we get this, which is not really what we want, but we are actually one step away from making this work. We just have to set the wrap to overflow visible so that the overflowing parts of the image is nicely visible. And you can see that now they're nicely overlapping. So we just have to duplicate this wrap with Command and D, and then paste in this image here with Command and X, and then Shift, Command and V. And I have to do this for each. So duplicate, Command and X, Shift, Command and V, and duplicate again, Command and X, and Shift, Command and V to replace the image. Now I can just simply increase the gap to get the overlap effect that I need. So maybe this level of overlap looks great. And what I also have is a little stroke on these. So to do that, I can select all of the images and I can set their shadow to outside, 0Y, 0 blur. The background color will be this one because it matches our background color here. And then the spread will be increased, and that's how we're gonna get that effect. As you can see, if I zoom in a little bit too much, it's not gonna be visible. It's just how it works in Framer. But yeah, I can just increase the spread, and you can see how we get this little stroke on the images. So I'm gonna have 4, and yeah, it should be good. Now I can further tweak the gap to have less or more overlap, and basically that's it. We're gonna also need a third, or actually a 5th little circle here, which will say plus 27k. So let me do that, duplicate this, change the image to just a color. So maybe it's gonna be like 6. And then within this, we're gonna have 27k. Actually plus 27k. So I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna try centering this. So I'm selecting the text and pressing Option H and V to center it both horizontally and vertically. Now I can just set it to white, change the white here. It's gonna be 540. And then to make sure that this plus button, no, it's actually not a plus button, but a plus sign, is a little bit closer to the numbers, we can select it and decrease the letter spacing only on that. So now you can see that it's getting a little bit closer. And yeah, we need something like this. We can actually decrease the the size. So we get something like this. Yeah, it looks great. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that the images stack here is set to fit content width. And then you can see that we still have some issues here. First of all, the overflow needs to be visible, but then something is not okay here. We still overflow this, and we overflow here on this side as well, which I don't really like. So to avoid that, I can just go to the images stack, and on the right, set padding on the left and on the right. So we are adding some space here. You can see how it starts growing here. So I can also just set it here so it matches the bounding box of these circles that we added. So 9 will be added on both sides. And now you can see that it's fixed here on the left as well. Pretty good. So now let's add this text as well. Let me copy this and paste it into Framer. I can maybe just duplicate this text here, just hold down Option on my keyboard and drag it, then paste in our text, and then Command and X here, and then paste it here. And then just group it together with the images stack that we created. So select both of them, and then Option, Command and Enter on my keyboard, and boom, they have been grouped. Set the alignment to the left, direction to horizontal, maybe make this a little bit smaller, 12, and then we can also add a max width that is a little bit smaller. And then again, the stack that we create, which is images plus text, or maybe social proof, is set to left alignment, or actually we can set the distribute to start, and that's how we move them to the left. Set the alignment to the center so they are nicely aligned to the center, and maybe increase the gap to 12. And yeah, basically that's it. Now the social proof can actually be pasted within the text plus form. So I'm going to press Command and X and paste it within here. We can also rename this to text plus form plus social proof. And yeah, I think we have created the hero section and it's fully ready. Now it looks great on a larger screen. We have the amazing AI imagery on the right, and then the content on the left with the form and everything. But is it looking great on phone? Well, let's see. As you can see, this is what we have on phone, which is not really great. So there is a few different things that we can do on phone. First of all, here on tablet, we have to set this form here to vertical direction, and this button here can be filled with, so they have a little bit more space. Then maybe to have a little more space for this text here, and overall for this left side, we can increase the left columns to 1 so it will have just slightly more space here. And then on the phone, we can just simply do something with this image first of all. So I'm going to set the width to 1 simply, so it's not like getting bigger than the actual phone breakpoint. And then maybe I want to move it to the top. Let me just start moving with the arrow keys. I'm actually wondering, we can also remove this image or keep it on the top. So let me try first just having it at the top. So let me remove or decrease this height here to 0.5 fr maybe, or even to a lower value. And then so we now have more space here, and then I can remove this padding or just make it smaller so we have more space for the content within here, maybe 20. I can then decrease the size of this heading here, maybe it's gonna be 20, 27 or 26. Increase the letter spacing just slightly, and then here vertical direction again, fill width. So as you can see, I'm just making overrides to the mobile version, so it looks great here. And then basically that's what I can do, but I'm honestly not sure if I like this image here with this phone version. So what I might do is I just turn the visibility off, and then, you know, this is what we have, just the left column when we visit this on a phone device. And yeah, basically now we are ready. We have optimized our website for mobile, and we can just click the publish button in the top right, update, and then click this little link, and you can see this is the finalized design. It looks great on desktop, looks great on tablet and phone. Yeah, it's really good. Try posting this on Twitter or some social media site. I bet it's gonna go viral because yeah, it just quite frankly looks really good. So yeah, basically that's it for this video. I really do hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions about this whole process, make sure to drop them in the comments. And yeah, I think that's it. Go to framer.university if you haven't checked it out already. It has a bunch of cool resources, tutorials, remixes that will, you know, help you if you are using Framer daily or whatever, just, you know, for building websites. So yeah, that's it for today. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.